Yo, are we on? Yeah, we're on. That's embarrassing. So, um, if you're looking for the weekly Steam Power podcast, we are taking a break this week because I am swamped with work and I'm tired. And frankly, we didn't get around to putting much together. Did I? Yeah. Couple links. We'll share those probably. Maybe we'll do something in the middle of the week. Anyway, um, God, this is embarrassing. Let me just change some settings here. Okay, so this week I got a my monthly or bi-monthly or whatever, but my copy of Johns Hopkins magazine since I went there. And on the back of this article, it had a good quote, and that is, "To improve the quality of life for someone is a very powerful feeling." Yeah, so I don't know if that's backwards or not. If it is, I apologize because I am not a professional video person. But that led me thinking about a topic to talk about. And that is, how do you become a better engineer beyond just the technical? So, especially as an undergraduate, you come out, you get the bachelor's degree in whatever engineering, and you go find your first job, and you realize how much of a huge difference between the academic world and the real world is. That's your first kind of eye-opening experience that, math and physics and science aside, there are, there are regulations, there are building codes, there are industry standards. There's all these, things kind of that constrain, control, require you to do things differently than purely sitting there designing with a blank piece of paper. At least how it was when I went through years ago. So that's kind of your first reality check of, okay, so the real world engineering, there's a little different in the than the academic world. And so you kind of spend some time, you do a couple of years, maybe you decide to go back to graduate school because you find something that you really like, a niche in your engineering field, and you want to know more. So that's kind of like your second phase. You go back to school, you grab some more academic knowledge. You may be involved with cutting edge research, and you kind of you build a little bit more of a narrow focus, but you start to you hopefully do grab a bigger appreciation. But I think there's something missing, that even with all this professional development that we have, continuing education, especially if you decide to come back and be, get your professional engineering license, which again is kind of more of it's a refresher of basics. It's ensuring that you understand, how laws and regulations impact the profession. But in my opinion, it still doesn't make you a better engineer. It ensures that you're a minimally qualified engineer, and that means that you're you're aware of the latest and greatest advancements, as well as policies and processes and regulations. But becoming a better engineer, especially in the context of this quote, to improve the quality of life for someone is a very powerful feeling. So my point of this rant is, to become a better engineer, you kind of have to stop being an engineer, which is kind of weird. And what I mean by that is, as an engineer, a lot of us are introverted. We love technology. We love math. We love science. We love seeing something built. We love getting to a product, but we do it sometimes, in a vacuum. That sometimes we become so obsessed about the technology or proving that we know the technology, that we've learned something, that we forget that we don't rarely. I mean, there are places where you build the tech for the sake of the technology. But a lot of times, especially, I'd say all, at the end of the day, we're building things that other people are going to use. Whether it's, mass products, mass consumer-based products, or you're building things that are going to go to people that are highly trained, I'm thinking like, military products, or, even, mass-produced smart devices and phones and tablets, and everything in between. So the point is, at the end of the day, all this means other people who are not necessarily as technically focused or technically minded as you are going to have to interact with whatever you design, build, create. So how do you become better at that part? How do you become better in that you're going to build something that is intuitive, that people like to use, want to use? There's a lot of things that, you're gonna just have to use regardless. But I think to become a better engineer, part of this is branching out again beyond engineering. So my personal experience has been to marry a sociologist. If you can't do that, though, there's other ways, and that is to, and I think it is to get experiences, is to take on jobs, volunteer for things that allow you to interact with people using technology. So like teaching, even just doing these stupid videos and blogs and writing and getting people to feedback. But if you can, if you can actually go out and teach or volunteer at organizations, and if not, just observing, just learning to observe people and realizing that, people are very nuanced. They are idiosyncratic. They will say one thing but actually do something different. So observing people, learning how to observe people, especially, again, how we use technology, how we interact with each other. I think learning to watch people gives you an appreciation of what it is that people really want in a product. And it kind of helps you figure out, when you're sitting there doing a design, you got 15 things on a wish list, and you start going, well, number one, I want this feature. It gives you an ability to say, do I want this feature because I want to use the latest, greatest whiz bang piece of tech, or the latest kind of whatever the in vogue design paradigm is, or are you actually building something because it's something that you think people will actually appreciate, use, know how to use, want to use? So yeah, in a nutshell, to become a better engineer, if you're, again, there's probably a handful of jobs where you're building things that will never, and end users will never touch. But even at that, you have to build things, well, so you may build things that, or design things that eventually they have to get fabricated by machinists, installed by technicians, maintained by technicians. So even in those things where you're not going to ever touch a end consumer kind of product, again, observing how people really work, even if it's not, going out and watching people in a, in a public setting, if it's being, going into a factory and watching how the technicians and workers work, if you're an industrial engineer or mechanical who's building, big, high-end machines, you still benefit from observing people, I think. So that's my rant for the day. Becoming a better engineer by becoming a people person, which is really hard for engineers, because I'd say a lot of us are lean towards the introverted side more than the extroverted side. So engaging people in non-perfunctory, non-sterile ways is kind of hard. And I think, as you want people to be as natural and not on guard as possible when you're doing the observing, so that you can really see how people really act. Because I really do believe in my education, in talking with my sociologists, psychologists, is that people kind of are not what you expect, and there's a lot of biases that we hold that frankly hold you back from being, again, a good engineer. And I think a good engineer has that innate ability to read a room, understand what people really want, and then can translate that to, design engineers. So yeah, I guess that's also part of what I think why I'm a big believer in the idea of diversity, because people with different backgrounds for whatever reasons, different socioeconomic statuses, different family upbringings, different family traditions, cultural traditions, lead people to have different points of view and ways to analyze situations. So if you aren't good at doing this yourself, building a diverse team that can take, even if you're all engineers, but if you have engineers that have different backgrounds from stuff that's not technical, they still will analyze situations, potential products, use cases differently, and that's very valuable. So, point is, bottom line, if you want to be a better engineer, become a people person. If you're going to have trouble with that, surround yourself with people with different backgrounds, and you probably will notice that your products are a little bit better. That's my experience, at least. So take it for what it's worth. I'm umming a lot here. I know that, which is why I need to diversify and have someone else who doesn't as much. But what are your thoughts? So if you've been in, not just engineering, any science or technology field, what is your experience in becoming better in your field that's not intuitive? Like, it's a counterintuitive, or it's a obvious way to become better at what you do. For engineering, for me, like I said, products, learning to build things that people use is learning about people, learning how people work, interact, think, and to do so in a way that's not biased by the fact that I'm an engineer and the way I see the world is probably a very unique, very narrow way. As most engineers, we think in terms of tech. We don't think in terms of people using the tech to perform whatever. That's it. That's going to be my rant for the day. And then hopefully I said in about a week, we'll either catch up with another episode of the Steam Power podcast, or we'll just be back in 2 weeks. We just needed a break, a week off. So anyway, thanks for watching.